Hi, Sophie here, and today I am going to be talking about balancing your hormones. Okay, so I'm going to cut straight to the chase here. There is no such thing as balancing your hormones, and I've been seeing recently all of these TikTok and Instagram sort of hormone balancing tips and tricks and hacks and recipes and supplements. And I just need to address this because there is no such thing. It's such a vague term. Hormone balance or hormone imbalance is a very vague, it's a too vague a term. And so to assume that there's one supplement that can balance your hormones, or one food or soup or approach that can balance your hormones is too vague, and it just doesn't make sense. And I'm going to very quickly explain to you why it doesn't make sense to stop you barking up the wrong tree. You know me, I love to myth bust, but also I want to give you 6 ways that you can have healthier hormones. So 6 ways. So I want you to stick around to the end because, like most YouTubers say, the last one, I'm saving the best one till last, but the last one is actually super important. But first off, let's talk about why it's too vague a term. So hormones are very, very complex. Your endocrine system is extremely complicated. So the first thing to ask yourself or your doctor is, well, which hormone are you talking about? So to say hormone balance as if all of this complex system can be brought into some kind of vague balance is nonsense. It just doesn't make sense. So which hormone are you talking about? Are you talking about thyroid? Are you talking about cortisol? Are you talking about growth hormone? Are you talking about sex hormones such as estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, etc.? So exactly which hormone are you concerned about? So that would be the first thing to ask yourself or your doctor or your healthcare provider, because it's a very different testing, treatment and protocol for somebody who has thyroid issues compared to somebody who has plummeting levels of estrogen or progesterone when you are in menopause. So that would be the first thing. And on that note, what I would say as the gold standard is to go get your blood tested. Now, there are lots of different tests that can be done. You can go see a functional doctor or integrative doctor, and there's all the different urine tests and Dutch tests and this test and that test and saliva tests and whatnot. And what we're now finding out is that some of those tests aren't 100%. They're far from accurate. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. Personally speaking, I go get my blood testing done. Now, the one thing with blood test is your hormones change all the way through the day. So your hormones are going to be, particularly your hormones like cortisol, are going to be completely different in the morning than how they are at the midday and in the evening. And so you can do various cortisol tests. But the gold standard is still, if you're really concerned and you feel, wow, I'm feeling terrible, I've got all these hormonal symptoms, I've got hot flashes, I've got all these different symptoms, brain fog and whatnot, then you might want to go and get a blood test done. You might want to go to your OBGYN or your doctor and just say, I want a full hormone panel. You may have already, a lot of women that I work with have had their thyroid tested. It's almost epidemic now. I would say 80% of women that I work with, clients, have had some kind of a thyroid issue. And many are on thyroid or have been taking thyroid medications for many, many years. And of course, we're seeing more and more Hashimoto's and autoimmune diseases and whatnot. But that is a different issue than cortisol or, being plunged into menopause, either early menopause because you've had a hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy, or you actually are fully in menopause, then you're looking at different hormones. So which is the thing that I want to keep top of mind? Which hormone am I concerned about? If I don't know, then just go and get all your hormones tested. And then the second thing to consider, and this is why the sort of balancing your hormones doesn't make any sense at all, is how. how does it need to be balanced? And a really good example would be something like estrogen. So some women may find that their levels have plummeted in menopause to suboptimal levels, their estrogen. And so therefore, there may be a treatment protocol to bring those levels up. And that's a discussion between you and your OBGYN or your doctor. And in some cases, there may be too much estrogen, free-floating estrogen in your blood, which could put you at higher risk for breast cancer. So again, it's like once you've determined which hormone, then how does it need to be balanced? And again, all of this is a discussion for you to have with your OBGYN or your healthcare provider and have proper testing done. Okay, great. Now we've got that over the way, let's quickly get to these 6 ways I would say 6 ways to have healthier hormones. And when I say healthier, when I talk about balance, what I talk about with my clients is bringing your whole sort of system into balance. You know what it feels like when you feel a little bit more balanced, when you've been away for a lovely vacation and you're relaxed and your digestion feels good and you've had a really good sleep and you feel healthy, and it's really bringing everything, I would say a better word is into alignment, mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually. That is the work that I do with my clients. So that whenever I use the word balance, I'm really talking about bringing sort of everything into alignment. So these 6 tips, these 6 points that I'm going to cover are very important for this overall balance and health, which will support healthier hormones. So let's get to it. Number 1, and this is the most important, is sleep. Getting enough sleep. You need to get 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. Most women do. Some women, and when I say women, if there are gentlemen watching, if there are men watching, you're so welcome. I talk mainly to women because I coach women. But of course, this is absolutely relevant to you as well, is getting enough sleep. So some people test their sleep. There's all these multiple gizmos and devices and Oura rings and everything else, and that might be useful to you. I don't find it very useful for me, just because I pretty much know. I know how many hours sleep I've got, and I know if I've had really interrupted sleep, and I know what it feels like to wake up feeling refreshed. And that's very, very important. And so when I work with clients, if anybody comes to me and they're pre-diabetic, diabetic, insulin resistant, overweight, one of the first things I ask them is, how much sleep are you getting? And if they're not getting enough sleep, and if they're getting really interrupted sleep, then that's why it's always a holistic approach that needs to happen, because that really does need to be dialed in. So sleep is very important. Of course, if you don't get enough sleep, you're more stressed, you're more irritated, you're more emotionally upset. And for postmenopausal women, that's the last thing you need. And it's much more likely that you're going to gain weight because you're hungrier, basically, during the day. You've got to get through the day. So sleep is number 1. Number 2 is eat enough. What I see with women, and particularly because I'm a weight management specialist and I work with women who, want to release belly fat, they want to release weight, they want to, get to a healthy weight, is that they're not eating enough. They're starving themselves because they're so worried. They've been in so much struggle for so many years. So what I really do not recommend is caloric restriction. That is a disaster. Please, nobody who's watching, if you're having trouble losing weight, don't do any approach whatsoever that anybody recommends that has caloric restriction. You've got to really restrict your calories, because it puts you into a state of stress, and then that's going to release cortisol, and cortisol is a vicious cycle that is going to increases belly fat, basically, and makes you feel terrible. So anything that is to do with caloric restriction, weighing your food, measuring your food, tracking calories. There's so many apps now that it's all about tracking and your calories and looking at your calories. I don't recommend any of that. You need to eat enough, and you need to eat to satiety. so you feel good and comfortable, and you have these sort of hunger pangs or this obsession with this calorie counting. So I cannot stress the importance of eating enough. Obviously, eating really nutritious food, bathing your cells with all these macro and micronutrients that they need, but it's really important that you eat enough. Okay, number 3 is balance your blood sugar. So many women that I work with, when they first come to me, they have these huge crashes. So they'll eat something, and sugar crashes can either come from eating, obviously, ultra-processed food, which gives you a sugar high. So that would be refined carbs and ultra-processed foods, and then you're going to have a massive crash. But it can also happen, you can get really hungry from eating what is typically recommended on very low carb, high protein diets, which is, you're going to have a massive amount of protein, practically no complex carbs. And then you get really hungry. Why? Because complex carbs such as whole intact grains and sweet potatoes and whole fruits and things, that's your body's preferred source of fuel. It's your brain's preferred source of fuel. Talk about women who come to me with brain fog and hunger and crashes and sugar cravings. Most of the time it's because they're not eating enough, and they're not eating enough complex carbs. So by eating a complex carb, and you need all the macronutrients, obviously, in every single meal. You need protein, you need complex carbs, you need your healthy fats. But don't give up the complex carb piece, which is going to balance, is going to give you this, balance your blood sugars throughout the day so that you don't have these crashes, which again can lead to, crazy cortisol and stress, which again leads to belly fat. So it's really, really important that you eat a balanced diet full of complex carbs and fiber. Fiber is critical. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is, and I'm just making sure that I've got everything here, is minimizing endocrine disruptors. So endocrine disruptors are chemicals in our environment that can mess, as it were, mess with your hormonal balance. And it's a very, very real thing. And I wrote about this a lot in my first book, Gorgeously Green, which came out eons ago, 2008, when nobody was talking about it. And I had done an enormous amount of research to find out that there were these chemicals in everyday products that we use that can be endocrine hormone disruptors. And it's really important that we look at this. Now, you cannot eliminate endocrine disruptors. It would be physically impossible in this day and age. Sadly, we live in a polluted environment. It is everywhere. You get into your car, that new car smell, that is endocrine disruptors on steroids. Being on a plane, medicines, medical devices, it's just, honestly, it's everywhere. So I don't want you to go sort of crazy about it. But what you want to do is look at what you can minimize in your immediate environment, which is what you consume and what you put on your body or around your body. Obviously, it would be clean and green cleaning supplies. It would also be things like, what am I trying to say here? Perfumes. Perfume is a huge endocrine disruptor. Please be very, very, very careful with the perfumes you use. I'll put a couple of perfumes that I really like below. When you think of endocrine disruptors, you also want to think of the foods you eat. So endocrine disruptors, hormones, are obviously going to be concentrated in animal products and dairy products, anything that comes from an animal. So eat as low down on the food chain as you possibly can. That's going to put you in a much better position in terms of avoiding endocrine disruptors that you consume. And generally speaking, I would advise that you look at the things that you use the most, that cover every single day, and that cover the greatest area of your skin. So that could be body lotions, it could be sprays, it could be perfumes that you're inhaling. Those are the things that you want to look at, but I'm not going to go too deeply into that. I don't want to make this video too long, and I have a lot of other videos where I cover that, but minimizing endocrine disruptors is really important. Okay, number 5 is to move your body, and you really do need to move. move throughout the day. Keep on moving. Whatever you can do to remind yourself to keep on moving your body, be a body in motion. You don't have to do crazy amounts of exercise. You don't have to do really intense HIIT workouts or 2 hours on the treadmill doing this insane cardio. In fact, those two forms of exercise can do more harm than good, because again, it goes back to that cortisol. That can release cortisol that can be deleterious to, your ability to lose weight. So you want to do balanced exercise. The exercise that I work with my clients is very targeted. It's generally much shorter. They do less exercise in some respects. It's a little bit more intense when they actually do it. And then a lot of beautiful movement. Keep your body moving throughout the day. That will help balance cortisol levels. It'll make you feel better. It deals with stress relief, the whole thing. So moving is very important. And number 6 is basically your beliefs. It's your beliefs and your thoughts, because your beliefs and your thoughts, also known as your mindset or your mindsets, govern everything. Everything. That's what I say to my clients. Everything downstream of your thoughts and your beliefs will be affected negatively or positively. If you think about it, if you have negative, fearful thoughts all the time, that's releasing stress hormones in your body. Right there, over and over and over again, a cascade of stress hormones. So I would say that this really is the most important piece, and this is the deepest piece and the most profound piece that I work on with my clients, because we really dig into the beliefs that have been governing them, running the show, running their operating system, sometimes for 20, 30, 40 years. That's what we really need to dig into, and really looking at our thoughts and examining those thoughts and beliefs, because we really can change those. And when we change those, so that they're more empowering, and we can walk around feeling empowered and calm, not all the time, but empowered and calm and in control, and we know how to manage our stress, and we develop this mindfulness, it changes everything. And finally, I remember seeing a doctor years and years and years ago, and I remember her saying, and she would prescribe for her patients all sorts of different hormones and supplements and all sorts of things. I remember her saying, and it just stuck with me, she said, you know what, if there's a crack in a swimming pool, you can keep on putting in as much as you want to, really good food, nutrition, supplements, whatever it is. But if there's a crack in that pool, the water will keep on draining out and it will be empty. And that's the crack that I'm talking about. And that's the thing that a lot of women come to me to talk about, because if we don't fix that, then nothing else is really going to work long term. So if you're really struggling with that piece, with feeling stressed and burned out, or you're overweight, or you have pre-diabetes or insulin resistance, or just stubborn belly fat that nothing seems to be working, be sure to click on the link below this video and watch my free presentation, which is where I go over these very specific shifts that I give to my clients, and I think you'll find it really interesting. So that's it for today. I don't want to make this video any longer. Those are the six pieces to focus on, and just know that there is no such thing as hormone balance. And keep top of mind, which hormone are we talking about, and how does it need to be shifted or changed? And that is a conversation between you and your doctor or your OB/GYN. I will see you next time. Leave me comments below. I love your comments. And subscribe, obviously, to my channel. Lots more videos speaking really mainly to women over the age of 45 on my channel. And I'm so excited to help you and to support you in bringing everything into alignment.